Hi, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of McCormick Care Foundation's podcast series. Today, I am really excited to introduce our guest to you, but before I do that, perhaps I should introduce myself. My name is Michelle Hancock, and I'm the Executive Director at McCormick Care Foundation. And as I mentioned, I have Twee Brown with me here today, who is the chair of the foundation board. She's also a generous donor, a sponsor, an advocate, and a community leader. And we're very grateful for her work that she does with the foundation in inspiring us and helping make things happen in our organization. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome you, Twee, to the foundation, or to the podcast series, sorry.
Well, that's true too. It is the foundation podcast series. Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me. Really, this is an extreme privilege and honor to be sitting here with you in this inaugural episode. I think what you have decided to do through this podcast and series is going to be quite inspirational for other people in our community to learn about what we do, as well as the work that and the effort that the foundation puts forth. So I'm very excited to be a part of this conversation, and hopefully we can share some insights on the efforts that the foundation puts forth on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. So I'm wondering, maybe we can start with sharing our whys. Why do you volunteer with McCormick Care Foundation?
Well, I have a very personal, deep reason for getting involved. I guess about 8 to 10 years ago, my husband's grandmother was diagnosed with dementia. Actually, it was she was diagnosed when she was 90 years old. So I think it's called late onset. And we were back at home in Vancouver visiting at that time, that summer. I think it was on August, and we were having lunch. It had been a few years since we had seen the family, and Grandma Marjorie was sitting actually across the table from me. And I had both my children with me, my husband and my mother-in-law, and Grandma Marjorie was directly in front of me. And we had a very pleasant lunch. The conversation was very friendly and warm, but it was not personal. And I thought it was really unusual, because normally she would ask about my parents, about our businesses. She would certainly have spoken and addressed the kids very personally. There was no personal questions whatsoever. It was like having a conversation with a complete stranger, although very polite. She said all the niceties that you would expect meeting someone for the first time. So I was fairly alarmed, but it was still a nice a meal. On the way to our car after lunch, I said to my husband, I said, I think Grandma Marjorie has no idea who I am. And certainly she has no idea who the kids are.
No.
And so he thought it was unusual because he was having normal conversations, very personal conversations. She was having with him, asking all the normal grandmother to grandson questions. And so everything was very normal for him. But for me, I felt like I was a stranger. So that elicited, a conversation between my husband and my mother-in-law. And then a couple of months later, Grandma was brought into our family physician, and then the process of getting diagnosed with dementia ensued. So that's really the main reason that I'm so passionate about this cause. I think it is affecting many people. I think my story that I've just shared here is not unique whatsoever. It happens to millions of people in our country, but certainly tens of millions of people around the world.
Yeah, it's, I'm always reminded when I'm listening to people share their story, how it's so much more than the person who's been diagnosed with dementia, the impact of the family, and then extended friends and so on and so on, that it has far reaching tentacles.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, for us, we live here in London, Ontario. We don't live in Vancouver anymore. But for Rob's mom and for Rob's sister who lives there, and the rest of the family, they were seeing it on a regular daily basis. And so they were affected by the impact of what was going on and the progress of dementia, within, that grandma was facing. So I think it was even, more, disheartening to see someone lose her memory and to lose who she was as an individual, right? She was a lively, dynamic individual right to the end, but such a different person the last few years of her life.
Right.
And so that really, impacted the way I feel, about dementia and more specifically about Alzheimer's. She was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and how it affected her behavior.
Right.
And it affected the family and how they were able to care for her. Eventually she was living on her own at the beginning, but then she ended up being in a home, a long-term care home.
You said something a little bit earlier about, after you guys had that conversation, you then followed up with Rob's parents to discuss what you had observed. And I was just thinking about the fact that I wonder if they had noticed it prior to that, or maybe it was just such a gradual shift that perhaps the family living in Vancouver maybe didn't see the changes the same way you would have seen them so noticeably after not seeing her for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, a good point. And I think majority of families, especially how dementia works, they, the individuals who are most removed from that individual or who have the shortest, period of time with the individual, I think they see it first and more profoundly than the family members who are with them every day. And I think that people who have dementia, they're really good at masking it too. They themselves might not know. And so there's other reasons. They're justifying why they forget certain things. And of course, all of us forget things from time to time, especially we have lots on our plates. But I think for the individual who have dementia, they are able to mask to a certain level and a certain degree and to a certain period of time until it's no longer maskable, I guess.
Right. I would say they're clever. Very clever in their responses. And you shared about your grandmother-in-law, I guess I'll say. So my mother-in-law, although not diagnosed, but looking back on it and now knowing what I know, also had dementia. I have no doubt about it. And, just one of those clever pieces I'll share with you. We were having dinner. It was her 81st birthday. And I think she'd been living with dementia for a lot longer, but the toll was being seen on my father-in-law, not my mother-in-law. But at any rate, my daughter said to her, "So Nona, tell me, what was your favorite birthday?" No, this is on her 81st birthday. "What was your favorite birthday?" And my mother-in-law looked at her and went, and then said, "Wouldn't you like to know?"
Clever.
Clever, exactly. And I found myself thinking, I think she struggled to remember another birthday. And in that moment of panic came up with this clever response to make it seem like nothing was afoot. And I always think of that moment because I think they can be quite clever. I think all of us, it's a natural mechanism for us to want to do something like that as well.
Absolutely. Another something that's hit closer to home and more recently, I was in Asia this summer and visiting my family in Hong Kong, and my uncle, I didn't realize how advanced, how much dementia has progressed. I heard a little bit from my aunt and my cousins, but I experienced it firsthand again, just recent months, and it was alarming and a little bit sad. He's known me since I was born, since I was a baby, and I don't see him very often, so he still remembered me, which was great. But I would be having conversations with him. And every few minutes he would ask me, "Oh, you're Twee, right?" I'm like, "Oh, yes, I am." And what was so interesting, at the same time alarming, was that I'm sitting with him as close as you and I are right now. And he thought I was still in university. asking me how school's going. He knew that I lived in London, but didn't realize I was not in London, England.
Oh.
He thought I was going to school abroad,
Right.
asking me if school's going well and whatnot. And he had asked me, who the young man I had brought with me that time. And I expressed to him that it's my son. He goes, "Oh, it was your son." So he was quite confused by it because he thought I was still at university age, which is my son is. I thought that was very interesting because I thought he would have seen my age and not think that I was my son's age essentially. And so that was the very first time that I experienced that. I'm not sure if, with dementia, the behavior is so different from person to person to person, but certainly that was quite interesting, I found. And so anyway, that's something else that is why I find this cause so close to my heart. Just because more than one family member and experiencing this sort of firsthand. And I know the anxiety and the fear that my aunt has for my uncle. What happens as he advances with dementia, and how will she care for him? And all those questions have come up. So, and for those individuals, the caregivers and the family members, it is a daily, monologue they have with themselves. Yes. Every day they're asking those questions.
Yeah. And so that's a good segue into, why I think the work we do at the foundation is so important, because, even though we're a small foundation, McCormick is a small organization today anyway. I think McCormick has the ability and the reputation and the staff teams and knowledge to take that knowledge and transition it into providing more supports, more knowledge and information, whether it be directly to caregivers, whether it be to other organizations in terms of best practices, but to really expand the footprint of who they serve in the future. And as we continue to build the foundation, I mean, today we fundraise for day-to-day things that improve and enhance care and people's lives, the quality of their lives. And I know from speaking to many individuals who either are part of the home or within the day program, how grateful they are for that injection in the here and now, in the moment. So often you think about making a donation, and that donation goes towards research or goes to other things that are happening in the future. And even the research projects that we look at funding are things that are happening in the here and now, to try to think about and explore how we can provide care better today, how people can live with dementia better today. And I think it's a big task, but there's just lots of need in the community.
Yeah, at times it feels quite overwhelming. But I think if we, as a foundation and McCormick Care Group, as an organization, if we just take these little bite-sized pieces and we keep progressing forward, one foot, in front of the other, I think we can advance the type of care that we provide, and especially through the programming services that is so needed within our community. And I think that's the reason why it is the work that we do here in the foundation is so important, and why the mission, as you can see here, advancing excellence in dementia care, has such a deep meaning. Because it is the work that we do every day, and the work that we do, or the work that the fundraising that we do, that supports the work that McCormick does as a whole, is so important and so vital for our community members.
I've often heard people say, it's a little gem in our community that not many people know about it. And I think this is one of the challenges about, more specifically, dementia care. But when you find yourself in need of the support services, or even just the knowledge, sometimes it's come at a point where it's immediate that you need that support and help. And I think if there's anything that we can do through some of these podcasts, is to help people think about things, even if they don't need it now.
Mm-hmm.
What could that look like as we move forward, as they move forward in their own lives, so that the people can be better prepared. So as we explore opportunity to share what it is that
I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree with you more, Michelle. I think, you mentioned just, a minute ago about what a gem this is in our community. I think that, I think we are, in such a unique position within the McCormick Care group or the family. You look at long-term care facilities, for example, or organizations. Not many in our country, certainly not many in our region, has a foundation that's attached to it and has a foundation that works solely to provide the support in enhancing the programs and the services that the McCormick Care group provides to the people that live here and also to the day clients that uses dementia services. Yeah. So I think that is an opportunity for all of us to speak loudly, to get on our microphones and to boast about the work that we do here, and to also share and to inform and educate our community to elicit the support that's really needed here. So I'm really I feel so lucky and grateful to be part of this, to be on the board, to be part of the foundation, and to be able to lend a little bit of help that I can back to our community.
Do you know, I was just thinking, so I started, as you may recall, April 1st, 2019. So coming up on my 5th year anniversary, I can't believe time is going so quickly. But I know you also joined the board somewhere around that same time. So when I look back to where we were and to where we've come, there's been a lot of growth in both the organization and the governance of the foundation, but also a lot of growth in the board and the culture and the different things that we're doing, and the community engagement in terms of the people that we have connected with. I'm going to use Alex Hannum, if I can, as an example, for lack of a better term, because I know through your work as a volunteer, you reached out to Alex because you thought he might be interested in joining our virtual Ritz Gala back in the day. And then, as it turns out, his mom happened to be a resident here. And then, sadly, she passed not too long ago. But through that, he was inspired to make a significant donation in sponsorship over the next 5 years, and now has inspired Maggie's Run, which I hear more and more people talking about all the time. And so I think it's these little connection points that really make the big difference to how people can find ways to get engaged or involved or think about what they can be doing. Anyway, so I thank you for that, but I don't know, any thoughts?
Well, I just thinking about your comments about 5 years since you've joined, almost 5 years since I've joined the board, and the evolution of the foundation, even within these 5 years, has been quite significant. I'm also quite proud, I think, like yourself, of the engagement that we have garnered just in these 5 years alone, and the culture we have in our foundation now. And I think it's important to note that when you joined, or when I joined 5 years ago, the foundation was really quite I would say, evolved and advanced foundation. Small in size, still mighty, but advanced and evolved because it's been around for a number of years. The last 5 years, I would say that we've taken what we found, the foundation, pardon the pun, and we've elevated the work that we do, at the foundation. So elevating the fundraising, the levels of fundraising that we've done, the level of community engagement. And that's all thanks to your leadership and the team, of course, of the foundation, and the community members that, like Alex and others that you just mentioned. Yeah. I think without the community support, without their, our outreach to them, but they're also incredible response to our requests for help, I don't think that we would be where we are now. I'm incredibly excited to see where we go in the next 5 years.
Yes, yes.
And perhaps, in the next 5 years, I may or may not still be involved with the foundation. But I will always be supportive of what we do here because it is so important. So yes, Maggie's Run, inspired by a community member.
Yeah.
And the Ritz. Right. There's another big, a signature event that we do. I think, prior to the start of this podcast, I'd asked you how many years we've been doing this. I think you mentioned 39 years.
Yep.
This upcoming Ritz. Wow. What a legacy that we're working with and that we're continue to steward and to evolve. How exciting it is. And I can't wait for this coming Ritz.
Well, I'm going to just go back for a moment because, when you were talking about, the Ritz Gala and just some of the work that we had done, I want to take a moment to highlight, even through the pandemic, the generosity of the community. And when we took our events virtual, which, everybody was doing, of course, but I think we had a team around us who did some really, really great work. And despite that, we managed to continue to grow our revenues year over year. But on top of not just what we did, I'm thinking about what McCormick Dementia Services and their teams did around, okay, we're faced with this pandemic. We need to close the day program, which has, dire consequences for our community and those that access the services. And you probably recall Karen shared with us that there were family members who were so desperate for help and support that they were dropping their loved ones off at the emergency room. Because they just couldn't do it anymore. And these are heartbreaking situations that, anyway, obviously leaving me a little bit speechless, so I can't think too hard about it. But it was through our community everywhere. And so with that, they looked to say, okay, wait a minute, we have to do something. We have to find a way, and started then the idea of this virtual learning lab. And so to that, we responded and, raised $80,000 to get that virtual learning lab established. So supporting the caregivers through education, providing virtual recreation programming. Now, some of those programs have morphed as the pandemic has ended and things have changed, but the virtual learning lab is still a vital tool that they leverage and use. And then as the pandemic continued on and we continued to see the challenges that were happening on the home front, recognizing that there's got to be a better way to deliver care in the home. And Karen and the team came up with the concept of McCormick Mobile. And, taking that interdisciplinary team, providing care where it's needed most in the individual's home. I mean, that is still a project that's happening. This is, I think this is when I mentioned earlier about the research that we do, this is what's so cool about it, is that it happens in real time. And, it is an official research project whereby people I say people. So McCormick is partnering with Western researchers to make sure that it is an authenticated research project and that we can prove the effectiveness and the efficiency of this kind of project so that we can present new ideas to the government of how to provide care in the home. And we'll begin to see some of these McCormick Mobile pieces begin in February of this year and see the impact of it in the home. So excited to see that. But again, these are the things that Ritz Gala donors and supporters have made an incredible difference in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think without community support, we wouldn't be able to do, to provide a lot of these, enhanced services, programs, these new initiatives that is, impacting our community members. And what I really love about a lot of the initiatives that we've done in the last 5 years, it goes beyond London. It goes beyond London and surrounding area. People can access it from worldwide. Yeah. And I think that's a really important piece that we have to, I like to highlight. My mother-in-law, we were talking about this at one point in time, and it was during one of the virtual Ritz. She became, she was an attendee.
Yeah.
And some of the information that we share online through the virtual learning labs and the information that we provide to our community online is accessible no matter where you are, whether you're in Vancouver, you're in London, England, it does not matter. So I think that deserves to be highlighted because the impact of these initiatives is not just relegated to a small community group or small population base. It is the critical mass is quite enormous if you look at it, and the potential to help others around, through our country and around the world. There's a great potential of that. So I think the little things that we do here, going back to the step by step, what we do here affects the world, and I think we do as a foundation. As an organization, McCormick Care Group, we could provide and elicit profound change and innovation for the dementia space.
Yeah, well said. I think so too. I'm curious to get your perspectives. I mean, I know we both recently read an article about the impact of dementia in communities across Ontario. Put out by the Ontario Medical Association. I'm going a little bit off script here, I know, but that impact is so profound in terms of the number of people who are not receiving services because there's not enough care. And anyways, it just underscores the work that we're doing and the work that needs to be done still, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think there's obviously the article highlights the lack of funding. I mean, in healthcare in general, we are every dollar is needed, but not enough dollars are being advanced to healthcare in general. And then you have, the dementia care and then so besides the funding, it's also where people live. So if you live in a remote area.
Yes.
And you're not lucky enough to be living in London, Ontario, or the GTA, or another, major center. What happens? How do we give these families support, their caregivers, the individuals who are facing dementia? And it is an everyday situation. It's not just something we read. It's not just a report in an article, newspaper. Yeah. How do we provide that real life support that is needed by the family? And I think the things that we're doing here, and that resource, being a resource. And the resource for families, I think that's important. So if we're able to continue to share all the learnings that we have here, continue to, share the research and the findings we have, I think more people can be helped in their homes, because of lack of funding and because of lack of access.
So you were just taking that next thought that I was having as well in terms of the need for care in the home is so great because there's such limited space to move into a long-term care environment. And so it's one of the challenges that every organization faces in this business, I guess, not every organization, but those that are in this business. I'm thinking about your comment to access and it just speaks to last year's Ritz Gala where we funded caregiver videos. And so, February seems to be a big month, but they are in the process of filming all of these videos, in February. And they expect that we'll have some ready to show at the Ritz Gala this year to be able to demonstrate the type of work that we were looking at doing so that people can see the results of their donations from last year, because last year I think was it was a landmark year for us in terms of the dollars raised, well over the $200,000 mark, and certainly we're aiming for that or more as we go forward in the future. And again, just underscoring all the need that we've already talked about. Maybe if I can share with you too, I think when I first came to this role and when I first looked at the opportunity, for me, it was about the fact that, I'd come out of the acute care industry in a fundraising space and I saw what happened in those early mid 2000s. This was my thinking at the time, pre-pandemic, keep in mind. And I saw that the individuals in our community were making change happen through philanthropy and through their vote, and watching governments, really cater to those who were looking for specific care. And you saw a lot of funding go to hospitals in that time period. There's obviously a whole bunch of other reasons for it too. I mean, there was a real need in terms of updating equipment, updating, technology, and to have more minimally invasive type procedures in the hospital for sure. And the need is still there as well, I know. But when I looked at all of that and how the community responded with philanthropy and with, their vote, all I could think was they're moving into the long-term care space next. And soon they will see the same need exists in that space. They just haven't had an eye to it at this moment. And I also believed, having had several family members, also myself, live with dementia, I knew the impact of all of this. And so I could see how that need was going to translate in our community, especially as our population ages. And then the pandemic happened. And that shone a bright light on long-term care and dementia care, brighter than we could have expected, I think. And then it sort of fast forwarded my thinking in early 2019. And so I think that's a positive thing. I think, everybody from government to individuals are beginning to look at this to think, how can we help? How can we change things? How can we make things better for people?
I think it has also become more sort of as it's become more of a forethought. Like I think because it's so much more immediate.
Yeah.
To your point that the population's aging, we're aging, our parents are aging, and is actually now hitting home. We're dealing with it in the immediate instance, right? Not going 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. So when you were thinking about, when you were in a different space in the fundraising in a different area, that was early 2000s. Well, now we're in mid 2020s. That's a good
aging myself. Sorry.
25 years later, we're that much older. Our parents are that much older. So I think it is an immediate concern. It used to be a growing concern because we knew the baby boomer generation is going to age and there's going to be a lot of people that we're going to have to support. But it is now immediate concern. I think we are, as a foundation, McCormick Care Group, the organization, we are really right in the eye of the storm, if you will.
Yeah.
Because there are so many people that require the services and the programs that we support as a foundation, but we do here and that we offer as an organization. So, I mean, to your point, it makes the work that we do even more important and more vital. And so every day I think about when I'm thinking about what we do here as a volunteer myself, sometimes we forget the importance of it, not the importance of my work personally, but as a collective, how we need to continue to push forward to advance and to enhance the services and the programs and to be innovative in the care that we give.
So you've made me think of a couple of different things. I'm going to start with the first comment, and that is the aging population. So for fact, that is true. But I'm often so surprised by how young people are in the day program, and younger all the time, and people younger than me.
Yeah.
And then even now moving into long-term care, these individuals who are no longer able to be cared for at home or cannot live independently by themselves are now also living in long-term care. And because they are younger or the same age as myself. And at times it's, one family with either both parents or with, I know of others with a parent and a sibling. And so anyways, it's just, again, I'm one more time underscoring what the need looks like in the community. And, as we continue on with this podcast series, this is part of our goal, is to share some of these personal stories with these individuals, so that people can get a sense. I think it's really important too at McCormick, because the part that is so remarkable is how much the staff are like family to these individuals, and how great the care is. And I think people sometimes look at either long-term care or look at going to a day program as, I don't want to be stuck in there with those people. But in fact, these people are really remarkable and very inspiring. And, I've spoken with other volunteers working in the day program who often joke, I'm not sure if I'm there to volunteer or if I'm actually a client to somebody, like they joke about this. And then I wonder if they're joking. I don't know. So at any rate, but that's how much people care, and they get to know each other, and they become friends, and they form relationships, and it really is inspiring. So, I mean, despite all of our talk about the doom and gloom and everything else, I think it's really important to highlight the fact that this is a really wonderful place, and the people who do provide the care are truly remarkable and amazing.
Well, you know what? That's a really good point, Michelle. I see so many of the pictures that we post of the residents that live here and the day clients that come here, and so many smiles. The artwork that they produce, the enjoyment they have through music programs, and everything else that we offer here at the home and through dementia services. So I really appreciate what you're saying, and that it's not doom and gloom. In fact, this is a place of hope and a place of inspiration. And I know from lots of people I speak to in the community, they feel it is such a privilege, and how lucky they are if they have the opportunity to be a part of the McCormick Care family, whether they're residents, whether they're the day clients, or whether they're caregiver or family members of people, of those who are dealing with dementia. So it is a really wonderful place of joy, and I'm really happy that you've highlighted that at this point in time, because I think so far our conversations talking about the need, and the need is real. So we can't forget it. And I think the challenge that we have as a foundation, and really in the dementia space, is I still think that even though there's so many people who are affected and impacted by dementia, there's, as an overall sort of cause for support, I think it's not sort of top of mind. It's not on the top of their list. And I maybe I'll throw about a couple of facts that might be alarming and, or possibly at least interesting for those people who are watching or will be watching us, listening to our conversation. There are over 25,000 new diagnoses every year in Canada. So new cases, new individuals being diagnosed. That's yearly. According to the World Health Organization, there are over 50 million people that have dementia, and they predict that by 2050, which is really 26 years from now, not that long from now, it will reach the significant number, I think 152 million people globally.
It's almost incomprehensible,
actually. It is incomprehensible. And it is right now a pandemic, because it is around the world. Every single continent, probably, I imagine every single country, every population, every community has people or have people suffering from or dealing with dementia. So we are talking about a pandemic, except in a very different way. And I think if there was one challenge that I can foresee for us as a foundation, for us as an organization, and for us as a community, is to raise that awareness. So it would be one of the things that we're obviously doing through the podcast, bringing people in and doing the outreach that we do, to show people and to demonstrate the need that we have. So very hopeful for sure as an organization. So thrilled to be a part of it. But I think we need to underscore the need for support and the continuous need. And that 152 million, worldwide, because it is so astronomical and it's incomprehensible, I think it's just a number.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to just throw out the fact and people, oh, well, that's interesting, and then leave it. But you look at the individuals within our community. There are thousands and thousands of people within our community. And I would venture to guess that every single one of us, whether it's through our neighbors, friends, family, we hear and we feel the impact and how it affects either ourselves directly or others that we care about.
Yeah.
So it is much closer home than we think.
I think, when you were talking about why people you didn't talk about why people don't talk about it, but it's not so prevalent from an awareness perspective. And I think it's not that people aren't aware, it's that there's still a stigma attached to it, right? If you go back so many years when people first started talking about cancer, it was the C word. People didn't want to use the word cancer. And a lot of work was done around destigmatizing this. But similar to mental health, it is because it is the brain and it impacts perceivably intellect, but not necessarily and or not really. I think people are worried about talking about it. I'm almost going to use the word admit, and I don't know that that's the right word, but I can imagine myself with a diagnosis like this, I wouldn't be so ready to run and share. And so for fear of what people might think. So I think that's part of the work that this can do. So, I feel like if we can help destigmatize and make people not feel, well, I'm going to use the word now, ashamed. And again, I don't know that these are the right words, in that, but, I would like to think that people will find the help they need and be able to make the calls they need. Because again, going back to the people who provide the care, they're really, really wonderful. Yeah. Can I do just a small aside from what we're talking about? I want to take a moment and acknowledge the fact, you within our community, you do a lot of great work for our community, whether it be at the hospital, whether it be for our foundation, whether it be for, the arts and community. I think if people were to ask, or if they had a question, they would say, where do you find the time? How do you manage to do all of that? And because when I speak to people, they'll say, oh, Twee's on your board. How remarkable. Lucky for you. And anyways, they have lots of positive things to say about you. But I have some insight into just your passion, dedication, and how you manage to work things into your day. And so instead of putting words in your mouth, I'm going to say maybe you can share with people how you find the time to make these things happen.
That's a good question. And I do get asked that question from time to time. I just think that if you want to make time for something, you just do. So, I mean, we're here, sitting here, and we're really focused on this particular matter, this subject matter. And then, during the day, I also have to work, and I have children and have other responsibilities. But I think it is, there's really no, secret formula. There's no special, skill or technique other than the fact that I just make time for it. And so I think, the individual, or at least for me, I believe if I'm going to make a commitment to do something, I will have to, make time to follow through. So it may seem like I do a lot, but I really don't. There is certainly within our family, we have, a few things that we're very focused on from a giving back perspective to our community. And we've kept the same, focus for a number of years, and healthcare being a very big part of that. So we don't deviate from that core, focus and concentration. So that's helpful.
Yeah.
But in terms of a day-to-day thing, or day-to-day perspective and the way I operate, it really truly is just compartmentalizing. I'm doing this particular podcast tonight, or, I have a meeting. I intertwine all the things I do, and it's not prescribed in the sense, well, today is just McCormick Care Day, or tomorrow is just a work day, or the next day is just family. It's very nuanced every day. Mm-hmm. It's different, and it's organic. I think one needs to go with the flow. Yeah. So some days are a little bit more challenging in terms of the workload, and other days are not. And I think if you can just go with it, right, and be prepared for the task at hand, nothing is it's not that overwhelming, to be honest. At least I don't find it that way.
Well, I think those are amazing strategies for people to be able to take, even if they can just take a couple out of what it is that you've just said, because I truly believe, to our earlier comments today, that without community support and without individuals like you, what we do, what staff does in organizations like this doesn't get the legs or the reach that it does when we have community involvement. And it's a really, truly important partnership. And that's how I view it, as at least. So I know our time is coming close to an end here. And I thought maybe the last question I would ask you is, any final thoughts, any other things that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, I think I'm going to, I would love to request. It's a request I think I'm making to the community. And that is to, hopefully, number one, they're hearing our conversation and future conversations. And I hope they pay attention just a little bit. Maybe dementia is not so immediate for them at this moment in time. But I hope they hear our discussions and think about what could be. Mm-hmm. Not to be scared, not to be fearful, and not to be anxious, but just looking towards future planning. That's number one. Number two, I hope that when we go out to the community, do outreach, and we're asking you for help, that you will answer our call, whatever it may be. However affordable, whatever the donation that can be afforded by the individuals, I hope they hear our plea for help. And then number three, I would ask that our community, hearing what we have to say, thinking about possible future and planning for themselves or other people, that they will share what we're saying. Mm-hmm. So help us do outreach. Yeah. Because we are a tiny foundation at this moment in time, but we have big dreams and we aspire to do amazing things. And if they could help us along, that would be something I personally would request as a community member, but also on behalf of the individuals that we're working for, that would be most helpful and I would be most grateful.
Well, Twee, thank you so much for taking time out tonight to come and chat with us and share these thoughts. I hope you know how much I do appreciate not just your time this evening, but your time in general, your counsel and your guidance. It's truly very much appreciated.
Well, thank you for having me and for including me in all this work that you're doing here at the foundation. It's quite wonderful and remarkable.
Twee, thank you again for being with us today. I really appreciate your time. And to all of our listeners, I want to say thank you very much for staying tuned and listening to us. I hope you'll stay engaged with us in this podcast series. Please subscribe, share, and be part of our growing community. I think together we can do great things. If you want to reach out to us, check out the description below, and please leave us your thoughts and comments. This is how we get better. Thank you.